Welcome to Paradigms at paradigms.life, the radio show and podcast that brings you inspiring people with visions of a viable future for life on Earth that includes humans. Hi, I'm Baruch. Welcome to the show. Thanks for tuning in. I'm glad to be here with you. I've got a wonderful guest. Last week's show, we talked about pregnancy loss. In this episode, we're talking about motherhood. My guest has just released a wonderful album of songs that both celebrate and explore the challenges and the rewards of being a mother. We all have mothers, every one of us, even if we weren't raised by them. We were all at least birthed by a mother. And this episode will air on Mother's Day, which originally was a holiday for peace, mothers demonstrating for peace. So in our never-ending quest to promote peace and justice, motherhood and Mother's Day fit right in. All right, we're going to meet my guest right now and then hear some of this wonderful music on this episode of Paradigms. Brenda Earle Stokes, welcome to Paradigms.
Thank you so much. I'm very excited to be here.
I'm really happy to talk with you, and very happy that I actually get to run a Mother's Day show on Mother's Day. Your new album, Motherhood, is really something, and I can't wait to talk about it with you.
Oh, thank you.
Before we talk about the record, though, I just want to learn a little bit about you as a person and as a musician, as an artist, how you came to play the piano and sing and compose, and then we'll get into talking about this particular project.
Of course, yeah. So I grew up in Sarnia, Ontario, where, I did the typical middle class piano lessons when I was a kid and was kind of partially into it. I practiced every day, but I didn't love it. And then when I was 15, my high school band director played Oscar Peterson for our class. And I was like, that's it. And you can see, the listeners can't see, but I have a huge poster of Oscar Peterson in my studio. And it was really that moment where I heard it and it all made sense to me. This was the missing piece. So I ended up going to York University as a jazz piano major, where Oscar Peterson was the chancellor and used to visit us a couple of times a year. And since then, I've done a whole ton of kind of wild and wacky projects. I managed to get on a cruise ship for a couple of years as a piano bar entertainer, which afforded me the opportunity to come to New York for 6 months to do the New York jazz player thing. And then I ultimately, being in New York, was invited to go to the Manhattan School of Music to do a master's degree. And I studied with some amazing people. And that was a long time ago. I've been in New York City now for 22 years. And I have done some just really cool, I've played with some really cool people. I've played with the Diva Jazz Orchestra. I played with legendary Maurice Hines. I've played with Donny McCaslin a few times. I played with Wycliffe Gordon a bunch on some tours. So I've really had kind of like a fairy tale experience. While I do that, I have a very busy teaching practice and an online course. So I'm an entrepreneur too. And I obviously, by the name of the album, I am the mom to a 12-year-old boy. So we do lots of things around here.
Oh, yeah. Some of the folks from Diva were on the show a couple months ago. Actually, they've been on the show a few times.
Oh, fabulous.
Sherry and some of the other women. And so that's just wonderful to hear.
Yeah.
And I just had an interview with Andy Milne, who is also worked closely with Oscar Peterson, who you probably know.
Yeah, he was a few years ahead of me at York, but I have met him a couple of times, but he's a phenomenal musician. Just amazing.
Wow, what a great story. So
thanks.
How did you decide, though? I mean, when you were a young person and you took piano lessons, did you go like, oh, this is it? Or were you like, piano lessons, wah, wah?
I was kind of wah about the piano lessons. I was, I would go and do our local Lambton County Music Festival, and, you'd be there playing the same sonatina as 15 other people are. And, I would be like, well, everyone else is playing it the same. I'm going to do something radically different. So I would play it insanely fast, or I'd play it with swung notes, or which of course horrified all of the adjudicators, but, delighted the audiences. It just really wasn't for me. I didn't feel like I was able to express myself in the same way. So that when I switched to jazz, it just absolutely made perfect sense for me to do. So I became completely obsessed, practicing many, many hours a day for many, many years, and kind of doing all the weird things that jazz musicians do. So, It just made sense.
I'm talking with Brenda Earle Stokes about her new album, Motherhood. We'll be back with more of this conversation, but first we're going to hear a track from the album. The first track, it's called The Endless Wait. Brenda Earle Stokes from her album Motherhood. This is Paradigms at paradigms.life.
The open hand that hides your face, a sudden movement, then it's gone without a trace. The open door, the endless wait for you, for grace. Another minute, another day, another movement that ignites then drifts away. The faded sunlight, the growing dark, we wait, we hope, we pray. How could someone who has not even been born assemble generations of people with his tiny heartbeat? The roots of our family tree wind and entwine, growing longer and stronger, tying together forever your father and me. And my mother and her mother before her, who you'll never even meet, are indelibly and unstoppably part of you. And who I am and who I was, all the pain and the healing of who I'm meant to be will be written in you. Our story lives on in you. The open hand that hides your face, another movement, then it's gone the open door, the endless wait.
The Endless Wait from Brenda Earle Stokes' new album, Motherhood. And now let's get into the next part of my conversation with Brenda Earle Stokes and learn some more about the making of the record and talk some more about why motherhood is actually a very political thing nowadays, especially. All right, here we go. So let's talk about motherhood. Now, I know that this is your record, but that there's a lot of collaboration with two other women who are your friends and the other musicians. And I guess I'd love to just hear a bit of the story of how this album came to be.
Yeah.
And I just want to notice that it covers a serious topic, but with a lot of humor and lightness.
Yes.
That is really, lovely to encounter.
Oh, thank you. So I started writing this album by accident when I was pregnant with my son, which is like more than 12 years ago now. And there was an existing song that I was writing lyrics to, and I wanted to write lyrics about my experience of pregnancy. And I was planning to put that song on my 2013 album right about now, but I couldn't get the publishing rights to it. They just were like, nope, sorry. And I was like, who knows? And, that was kind of the beginning of all of this. And then over the years of mothering and pushing the stroller around and going from place to place, I was singing little fragments into my voice memos on my phone. I was writing ideas down. I've kept a daily journal for pretty much my entire life, and all these little fragments and little things that I'd written down. And so I started to realize, like, I think this is a project. I think this is something that I want to do. And in November of 2019, I was invited to go to the Banff Center for Fine Arts to do a residency. And they offered me, like many weeks, but I was like, I got 9 days. I could take 9 days off my life and do it. And so I kind of knew what I wanted to do. I knew what I wanted to say, but I didn't have the space to do it. I needed to like lock myself away from my family and my life, my teaching, to like go into my hidey hole. And so in the 9 days I was there, I composed 8 of the songs on the record and recorded demos of all of them. So the last day I was there, I recorded demos of all of them. And that was the record. I walked out of there thinking, great. And in January of 2020, we did our first performance of all the music. You know where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
And we just have to say 2020 and we start hearing the Jaws theme. But, it was January of 2020, and Ingrid Jensen, the amazing Canadian trumpet player, and my friend Ross Peterson, who's the drummer, he played in Manhattan Transfer's band for many, many years. It just was I was like, this is it. It's the spring. We're going to do it this spring. And then, dun, dun, dun. So, the project went on hold. During that time, I homeschooled my son. I pulled him out of public school and homeschooled him for 2 years because they weren't it just wasn't working, the online school. So I said, I've just had a weird life anyway, so let me be weird and I'll homeschool. And we did that for 2 years. I started my online business during those 2 years. And, with this project was looming. So around this time last year, I started saying to myself, it's now or never, girl. Like, you're either going to do this now or it's never going to happen. And so last summer, I composed the last 2 songs on the record. I did a ton of work, like revising the music and revising it. And then we ended up recording it in October. So I always joke that my motherhood album was sort of usurped by my actual motherhood.
Sounds about right.
True to life.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
Do you know Sarah Jerome?
Yes, I do. Yes.
She was on the show yesterday talking about Magpie, which is about pregnancy loss. So your show will follow that one, which is just
wow. Interesting. I haven't checked it out yet. It's on my list.
It's good. So the songs on this record, I just listened to it. They're pretty wonderful. And as I said, there's some humor in there, but it's not, humor at the expense of the seriousness of the topic. It's motherhood is it sounds so silly to say, a big deal. And it is how our species manages to sustain itself. So one of the things we see is culturally in different cultures and different times, mothers are revered, mothers are scorned, mothers are blamed, mothers are politicized, all the stuff that we see going on about this thing that is really just an organic biological function of humanity.
It is. And unfortunately, it's one that has been politicized for, a very, very, very long time.
Yes.
One of the things I say all the time is motherhood. You can't get much more political than that. It ties in with women's rights. It ties in with women's liberation. It ties in with a lot of racial issues. It ties in with so many different things. And I think because we're living in such an individualized way. Less in Canada. In Canada, you guys have a lot more supports, but being in the United States, it's kind of every man or every woman for themselves for a lot of things. And I think one of the things that was happening to me was I just kept thinking, my God, I feel like I'm going crazy. Like, why is this like this? Where you feel like you're being judged. There are these unrealistic expectations where all of a sudden you're doing all this stuff around the house. And it's like, why am I doing all this? Like, what made me the expert? And then it was in very close friendships with a couple of women, in particular, my friend Kathleen. There's a song about her on the album. She's a real person, where we would sit together and say, like, are you finding this too? And as you talk to other mothers where they're like, yeah, I have the same exact problem. And then you start to read the literature. You start reading things like The Feminine Mystique, you start reading about The Second Shift. You read Fed Up or Fair Play, which is there was a Netflix special on it recently. And you start to realize, like, no. This isn't a problem that's going on in my house. Like, I have a wonderful husband who's very supportive and lovely. This is a cultural issue that is expecting insane things out of women and mothers, and not willing to pay us for any of it or provide really any cultural support for it. And then we're left, kind of picking up the pieces. So, my way of handling things is, as you know, is with humor. But I wanted to get real about it too and say, like, this is what it's really like. And it's a very mixed bag. It's a very frustrating thing. And it takes some pretty evolved people to be willing to do the work to improve it.
We'll be back with more of my conversation with Brenda Earle Stokes, but here's the song that we were talking about, and we're going to talk about some more. Kathleen, from Brenda Earle Stokes' new album, Motherhood.
What's going on, Kathleen? You're looking down. You're not yourself. You can't seem to get it all down. Something is wrong, Kathleen. They set the bar. You're stretched too far, but somehow life is humming along. Now that the kids are in school, Kathleen, they're gone all day, but your troubles stay. Shouldn't this be easier? You're starting to think that something ain't right. Getting through the day feels like such a fight. Your mind is weary, your body is sore. You push to get it done, but there is always more. I've seen you trying with my own eyes. There's not a method out there that you haven't tried. You get up early, you take good care, but I think this problem might be bigger than a spreadsheet can repair. The frustration that builds, Kathleen, you're met with judgment. No matter what you do, you're undervalued through and through. This guilt that you feel, Kathleen, you try to survive, but it eats you alive. Why are you invisible? A million chores to do before you get out the door. Load the kids in the car and run to the store. You had to cook, clean, and stay on top of it all. So many balls in the air, wondering which one will fall. The nights are short, the days are long. No matter what you do, it always seems wrong. It's feeling like there aren't enough days in the week. Is this what they meant about the feminine mystique? I'm just like you, Kathleen, a list of things to do that I can never get through. Don't think that it's just me and you. Take it from me, Kathleen, we're not alone, fighting tooth and bone, carrying the mental load. Being the default parent is such a grift. If you work outside the home, you get the second shift. We have to get it all done with a smile on our face, and then our contributions are swiftly erased. When the fathers show up, they get all the praise. Any little thing they do gets us all amazed. We can't get over how thin we're all spread. Wasn't women's liberation meant to get us ahead? Stressing about what all the critics say. Whenever something goes wrong, the mother's on to blame. Whether the son is in jail or just late for the game, you beg for help, you wave a white flag, and the name they call you is nag, nag, nag. Organized, cook, clean and shower. You gotta vacuum the floors, you gotta run them up. Fold the laundry, fold it away. Send in the money for the PTA. Your sons need to take classes. Your husband needs glasses. The dentist should be scheduled for the last week in August. Your older son needs OT. Your younger son is needy. Why can't they ever seem to get along? You've got a long, long list of bills to pay, and your kids need haircuts for picture day. Your in-laws are coming. You have to clean the oven. You have to call the handyman to come and fix the plumbing. Your lists are getting longer. Your headache's getting stronger. You're begging for help, but your husband does it wronger. You grit your teeth and you put on a smile, and you can bet your ass you haven't been to book club in a long, long while. And we're told we're not home enough, we're not connected enough, we're not loving enough, we're not giving enough, we're not present enough, we're not patient enough, we don't do enough, we don't give enough, we're just not enough, we're not enough, we're just not enough, we're not enough, we're just not enough, we're not enough, we're just not enough. So you can see, Kathleen, it's just not fair. Mothers everywhere. Is it any wonder why we're all fed up?
Kathleen. That's Brenda Earle Stokes from her new album Motherhood, with a song inspired by her friend Kathleen. And now let's get back into my conversation with Brenda. Well, I'm really glad to hear that Kathleen is a real person, and that was going to be one of my questions, because it's a really great song.
Thank you.
And in that song, you really name a whole lot of challenges.
Yeah.
That mothers face. And I'm really glad to hear that. The songs, the way the album is structured, it almost like starts with gestation and then childhood and then works its way through it.
Yep.
Which is great. It makes it, it's like, it's telling us a story that we get to easily follow through. And some of it's generic story of motherhood, and some of it's your story of your motherhood.
Yes.
So how's motherhood going?
Well, it's every day is a different thing, Every day is a different thing. And I'm one of those people that I'm a big thinker. I think about a lot of stuff, which is a for better or for worse kind of situation. Some people just go through their daily lives and they don't, but I'm always thinking about the bigger picture. I'm always reading the book. I'm always thinking about, is this just my experience? Is this a general experience? And pretty much every song on the record is my own personal experience, but I think there's a lot of universality to it. And the song Kathleen, case in point, the song starts out as a conversation, one of my typical conversations between me and Kathleen, where I'm like, you're not looking so good, Kathleen. You feeling okay? The typical thing. And then the whole song kind of pans out to like, well, wait a minute, I'm having the same problem. Well, wait a minute, everybody else is having the same problem. So it's sort of personalized about me, but also is really very, very universal. And a lot of the people who have heard this music are like, yeah, this is really what it's like. I've always been that friend though. Like when someone's like, I'm pregnant, I'm having a baby. Yeah, and they're like, you have any advice? And I'm like, do you want real advice or do you want like, enjoy your beautiful baby, Right. And so I'm always the friend. People always say they want to know. I'm always the friend that tells people the truth. Like, this is what it's really like. And because I appreciated it when people told me that too, because then I didn't feel like I was going crazy. I've always appreciated people's transparency. And so I try to be super transparent about things too.
It's so interesting how we have these sort of myths. Oh, once I find my person, my life, everything will be great. No, once you find your person, the real work begins. Oh, once I have my child, I'll be just so happy. No, you're going to be really tired and you're going to be working your butt off. Not that these are not wonderful things. They are, but maybe even especially the really good things in life, we have to work for it sometimes. And sometimes you really have to work for it.
And I have a great friend named Lisa. She's, quite a few years older than me, and her son is in his 30s. And I would tell her about things that she's going on, and she would always say to me, well, don't worry, it'll get better. And then it'll get worse again. And I don't know why, but it made me feel so much better to hear that. It's like, well, it's going to get better and then it's going to get worse again, because that's how it is. And I always appreciate when people, because then you don't feel like, what am I doing wrong? And that's another big narrative in general, is everything we are doing is wrong all the time. And you can turn on the news and one day you should be doing this and one day you should be doing that. And one day you should be, it's like you can never get it right, ever. And so to have people, kind of verify that this is what the real experience is, so that when the bumpy roads happen, you think, yeah, this is part of the process. I'm not doing anything wrong. Because, face it, anybody who has kids, you can do everything right and your kid can have problems. And you can do everything wrong and your kid is amazing. So I've started to realize, even though obviously I try to do amazing all the time, I try to do everything I can. I think about my kid all the time and try to do what's best for him. Ultimately, it's his own life.
Right.
So, the more I obsess about it, the more crazy I get about it, the worse it gets. So, we do the best we can. We try as hard as we can with limited resources. And, we hope for the best.
We'll be back with more conversation with Brenda Earle Stokes after we hear this one. It's called This Is Your Childhood, from the new album Motherhood by Brenda Earle Stokes. You're listening to Paradigms at paradigms.life.
Open your eyes now. What do you see? I see a tiny realm of possibilities looking at me. Let's put our shoes on. Now is the time. We will take in a world of treasures with your hand in mine. This is your childhood. Don't be afraid now, I won't let go. I'll be right next to you as we watch while life puts on a show. Let's play I Spy with the colors of cars. We're not in a hurry or a rush because the whole day is ours. This is your childhood. up while we're both still young. There's so much to see now that your life has begun. The years are short, but the days are long. I'll read you a book, I'll sing you a song. We'll find fun things to do to fill up our day, and I'll relearn that once forgotten joy of play. There will be hard times, I'll have to dig deep. Days you won't listen to me, and nights when you just won't sleep. I will get angry, I might be unsure. No matter what trouble we have, I know that love is the cure. I'll try hard to teach you everything that I know. I'll savor each precious day as I watch you grow, 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 grow. I know you're too small to remember these days, your tiny mind lost in a little boy's haze. I'm here to share these moments with you and lock them away the way that mothers do. My job is to take you as far as I can, protect you and keep you and take your hand. Our bond is strong and it will run deep. A childhood is not just for a child to keep. This is our childhood. This is our childhood. Open your eyes now. What do you see? I see a tiny realm of possibilities looking at me.
This is Your Childhood, Brenda Earle Stokes from her new album Motherhood. And now here's some more of my conversation with Brenda. Two of my favorite resources for parents. One is a book called Hunt, Gather, Parent.
Oh, I don't know that one.
It is a fabulous book. The author is Michaeline Duclef. Actually, she was on the show, and it is the most downloaded episode of this show.
No kidding.
And it is a really great book. And she went and spent time with her young child in different indigenous cultures to learn about how they were parenting, because she felt that some of what she was doing wasn't working. So it's a really awesome book. And my other favorite resource for parents is Khalil Gibran's The Prophet, the section on children.
Oh, yeah, that's beautiful.
You know, where he says, your children come through you, but not from you.
Right.
You know,
right.
and all that respect for the child as their own person, as you were just saying. And I think that it requires a parent who is an individuated adult to do that.
Absolutely. The book I love is Hold On to Your Kids by Gabor Mate. That's a really
love him.
great book. Yeah. And it's like reminding you nowadays parents don't just have to worry about influence from, other kids, but they have to worry about influence from media. And, there's all kinds of stuff going on down here in Congress about TikTok and social media and what impact it's having on kids. And so there's even more pull away from parents being able to, kind of hang on to their children and have that impact on them. So that book is a really clear kind of conversation about that, which is helpful. It's hard. There's a lot of people or more like companies who are trying to have that influence. And so it's harder than ever, I think, to be able to, maintain a strong sense of what your values are for your children.
Well, and there are political movements that are very clear that they are about getting the kids and indoctrinating them so that they can further their political agenda. And these are
it's terrifying.
Yeah, and these are not nice humanistic, caring. These are totalitarian, authoritarian paradigms.
There's a whole thing, and I worry about this with my own son who has a cell phone that can only call like 5 people and has no access to social media. But, there's a lot of these weird pundit guys who are coming after boys, particularly white boys, to try to, recruit for white supremacy movements. And, people, I say this to people, I try not to say this to people anymore because I think I'm crazy, but it's like, no, this is a real thing. And so why there's no Snapchat, why there's no YouTube without me being there watching, Saturday Night Live sketches or whatever, is because of these movements. It's a crazy thing to have to think about, but at the same time, I can think about it now or I can think about it later. So
better now before it's too late. I have a friend whose son was really targeted by some white supremacists for recruitment, and he ultimately rejected it, but he had to go through some changes around it.
It's tough, and that's the, segue into the song Sharp Edges, which is...
That was the next one I wanted to ask you about.
So Sharp Edges is an 8-minute long spoken word. And I have never, ever, ever written anything like that. I've never done spoken word. I've never done acting. That is not my thing. And one of the exercises that I had put for myself while I was at Banff is I thought, fear is such a problem. You can't turn on the news or the radio, fear. So I thought, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to write down every single thing that I have been afraid of at some point with regards to my kid. And it was like 9 pages long. And I thought, this is so pertinent. I know I'm not alone in thinking about this. And I thought, I wonder if I could turn this into something. And so it started out as being 14 minutes long, but somebody suggested, why don't you shorten it a bit? So basically what I do is I go from topic to topic and I list every single thing that parents have to worry about, from normal childhood illnesses to, dangerous situations, to peer pressure, to gun violence, to environmental crisis. And again, I think it's funny. There are definitely some moments where you're like, oh, okay, that's, there's definitely a couple of like pauses for the laugh track. But, usually by the end of the piece, the couple of times I've performed it, people are usually have their chins on the floor and they're like, whoa, like that's really intense.
Here's a song we were just talking about, Sharp Edges. Brenda Earle Stokes from her new album, Motherhood.
Isn't this a terrible time to be trying to raise a child in this day and age? Far too many sharp edges. Is anyone else out there struggling to make sense of it all? Make you lose some sleep, make you lose your mind. Far too many sharp edges. You never really know fear until you have a child. The world is full of spiders and snakes, monsters, and taxes. But life as a parent reads like a Stephen King novel. When you have a child, you suddenly become acutely aware of just how dangerous the world is. For example, your child could fall and hit his head on the side of a table and end up getting 10 stitches in his left eyebrow. This actually happened to me. You could lose your child at the supermarket, or they could get abducted by some psychopath who offers them candy to get in their car. By and large, I'm here to tell you that the world we live in is chock full of sharp edges. When you bring home your baby, you try to make your home a safe place. You secure the furniture and cover all the electrical outlets. You cut grapes in half, cherry tomatoes in half, blueberries in half, lock cupboard doors, and put dangerous substances up high where they can't reach them. But what about the chemical-laced food, recalled crib bumpers that will suffocate them, and car seats that will do nothing to help them in a crash? Curtains that will strangle them, medicines that can poison them, and toys that could break, leaving tiny pieces that they can choke on. So you panic, and you run around the house like a maniac, trying desperately to pad and cover all the sharp edges. Oh my God, What will happen to my child?
Then your baby gets sick for the first time, and you start to see the reality that your child's health is also full of sharp edges. There's fevers, ear infections, the flu, Coxsackie, chickenpox, croup, and don't forget diarrhea. So much diarrhea. How about impetigo, strep B, UTIs, rotavirus, influenza, pink eye, fifth disease? Now that people have decided to stop vaccinating their children, we also have to worry about nearly eradicated childhood illnesses, like whooping cough, the mumps, the measles. It's like we're living in the 15th century again, people. What's next? Little Avery has bubonic plague? You lie awake at night, wringing your hands, tossing and turning, worrying about every sneeze and rash, wondering when you'll have to call 911.
Isn't this a terrible time to be trying to raise a child in this day and age? Far too many sharp edges. Is anyone else out there struggling to make sense of it all? Make you lose some sleep, make you lose your mind. Far too many sharp edges.
So you take them outside. The outside is a great place for children, right? Wrong. Everywhere you take them is basically a death trap. The playground is filled with hordes of unsupervised, much bigger children pushing and shoving at every turn. They could tumble off the monkey bars, fall head first down the slide, or propel off the swings. Perhaps your child is old enough to ride a scooter or a bike. And even though they are wearing a helmet, knee pads, elbow pads, and wrist guards, you know that at any moment some speeding car will come out of nowhere, jump the curb, and run over them. So much for your day at the park. Once your kid gets old enough, then they get to go to school. Another event that is positively teeming. Sharp edges. Oh, there's the usual. Bullying boys, mean girls, not getting picked for team sports, and that inevitable outbreak of head lice. Then you discover that you're either a helicopter parent or a snowplow parent or an absentee parent, and no matter what kind of parent, you're probably doing it wrong. Wait till you see all the homework. The non-stop state testing and politicization of school boards leading to impossible work conditions for teachers. And if that's not bad enough, in today's world, schools are now required to do active shooter drills.
Isn't this a terrible time to be trying to raise a child in this day and age?
It's a competitive world out there, and we are told that if we want our children to succeed, then we better make sure they are well-rounded. Want to know what well-rounded means? It means coughing up the dough for math tutors, dance classes, Mandarin lessons, travel, sports, and cheer squad. We are told that every choice we make for our children from the time they are toddlers will determine whether they have a good life or live in a van down by the river.
Is anyone else out there struggling to make sense of it all? Make you lose some sleep, make you lose your mind.
Here's a fun one. If little kids have little problems, what kind of problems do big kids have? That's right. There's peer pressure, cyberbullying, underage drinking, sexting, street drugs laced with fentanyl, teen pregnancy, and whatever the hell they're doing on TikTok. There's so much sex and violence in the media that it's like we're living in a 24-hour dystopian, apocalyptic zombie porn movie. There's pesticides in the food, global warming, polar ice caps are melting, causing unprecedented coastal flooding. Unless you're in the West, where there are relentless forest fires burning down entire communities, or somewhere in the middle where you never know when the next tornado is going to blow through. The oceans are full of garbage, the air is full of carcinogens, the rainforests are nearly gone, and every animal on Earth is practically extinct, except for Lyme disease-carrying deer ticks and those alligators that eat children at Disneyland. The scientists keep telling us that our last chance to save the world from complete destruction was 25 years ago.
No wonder we're all stressed out, wound up and worn out.
And I write this list of fears as a white, middle-class, college-educated, native English-speaking, heterosexual, cis female. My son is white. If these are my nightmares, I shudder to think what so many other parents are going through.
Isn't this a terrible time to be trying to raise a child in this day and age? Far too many sharp edges. Is anyone else out there struggling to make sense of it all? Make you lose some sleep, make you lose your mind. Far too many sharp edges. Far and wide, get inside, run and hide.
We just heard the song Sharp Edges. It's a pretty strong one from Brenda Earle Stokes' new album Motherhood. All right, here is the final part of my conversation with Brenda Earle Stokes. So is your creative process a big part of how you deal with and process and sort of work through your own challenges? Do you have other things you do that help you work through the things that come up?
I tend to be a collector, so I am kind of collecting things as I go. A lot of times, as I said, I have a journal that I keep every day, and a lot of times something will start out in a journal and it'll move. It'll go through like the next page and 5 pages later, or it turns into a voice memo. And so when I collect enough stuff, then I will say, okay, it's time for me to sit down and finish it. I don't have the luxury of a daily practice routine, or I don't have a lot of time to, sort of disappear into the woods being creative or things like, it's just not really realistic for me. Especially because I have a business and I'm teaching a lot of students, and I have a lot going on. So that's really my process. And when I need some time, I'll take a little time. I'll hide out here for the weekend, and my husband will go somewhere, or they'll go to scout camp or something. And so that's kind of what I do, is I'm sort of earmarking material, and then I will sit and complete a lot of it at one time.
Do you play out?
Yep, I still play out. Not as much as I used to. Like now I'm focused more on, I have the album release in New York City on May 16th. And then this fall, I'll be doing a tour in Ontario in October. And then another one, I'm doing a few dates in November. And then very likely I'll be going to Australia our next winter, probably like February, March. And then I'm hoping to play some of the Canadian jazz festivals in 2025. So we'll see how it all shakes out. I do like the handful of things that come up in the city, but I don't play as many clubs as I used to. I don't play as many like corporate events as I used to, because I'm busy and kind of happy with what I'm doing, and I'm not as keen to be schlepping my keyboard all around, on the subway.
Yeah.
Those days are behind me.
But it sounds like there's such a wonderful thread that runs through all the things you're doing of just who you are. And, you have all this bright energy and humor and deep thinking, it's a great combination to bring to people, because they can, like with this record, it's really accessible. People can really hear it. Even people I know who are not crazy about jazz will be able to relate to this.
Yeah, that was part of the purpose of all of it. I also think there's been this huge part of sort of pop music and music theater influence that has been looming around for a long time. It doesn't belong in every environment. I don't want to do one of those albums that feels like what is this? I don't know what this is. So with this one, since it was around a theme, I could take a few more liberties with what I did musically, maybe going into some territory that is a little further into pop or music theater than I would ordinarily do. So that was the point. And, I'm very lucky to be able to do what I do. Like, that's my sunny disposition. It took some work to get here. But, and I think that was the takeaway from the pandemic too, where I was like, well, so here we are, now what, and I realized that I had a lot more agency over what I was doing. I could have just, said, oh, my gigs are gone. Oh, this is terrible. And I thought, well, I have these online courses I've been doing. Let me see what I can do with them. Or what if I show up in a different way? The next phase of the album, once the album is out, is I've filmed 3 real music videos, like narrative videos. I've been experimenting a lot with the video idiom. And so I have a YouTube channel for my artist work. What if I have these music videos that tell the story in a different way? Like, where I'm in a costume and I'm lip syncing and there's like a story based around it. So that's another thing that I felt very, very strong about when I was writing this music. And I thought, heck, why not? Like, let's do it. So
Oh, that's great. I love it.
when else am I going to do this? You know what I mean? I'm not Taylor Swift. I'm not a $1 billion industry. I can't go on tour 30 weeks a year. It's just not really feasible. And I don't even know if I could do that if I wanted to, just how the industry is. So like my thought process is like, what can I do? What am I interested in doing? What would be fulfilling to me? And what might be meaningful to somebody else? And so I've been trying to keep myself firmly rooted in all of that.
Is there a theme emerging from your various musings for the next record?
I have a few things that I'm thinking about. I have an album of trio music that's a little more typical towards the jazz stuff that I do. That's a combination of actually a bunch of music theater stuff that I've done arrangements for that I've played a bunch but have never been recorded. So that's like one thing that I've fiddled around with. But I've also started writing some songs about now, like songs like about courage, like things that I've seen from my kid being in middle school, like the thoughts of like, what is courage? What is integrity? What does it mean? Because I guess I'm firmly in middle age now, like the identity changes again, right? And the stuff that you used to worry about when you were 20 or 30 just isn't a thing anymore. So I'm thinking a lot about that, about like all this anti-aging stuff and, more body image pressure on women. And somewhere in there, I think is something, but there is some music that is already starting to come out and you'll have to see what I do next year. I still have some stuff to say.
Well, yeah. Well, after Motherhood, it makes me curious to see what your, approach will be to other things, because this is a really cohesive piece with many, many facets that the listener walks away having gotten something from. So I thought, okay, this woman's got a voice. Well, I'm curious to hear what you do next. So I can't wait for that.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much. This will give me a little more of a kick in the fanny to get my act together and do something.
Brenda, thank you so much. Really a pleasure to talk with you. We could go on and on. I really
thank you.
Enjoyed the music and enjoy meeting you, and we'll be in touch.
Yeah, sounds great. Thank you.
Brenda Earle Stokes, thank you so much for talking with me. It was a pure pleasure. You have such great energy, and your music is just wonderful, and that you made this record about motherhood with all of the beauty and challenge. And in this world right now, with so much conflict going on, but also everywhere in the world, people are having children, people are raising families, people are doing the best they can to make a good life here on earth for themselves, for their neighbors, for their community. Some folks are really thinking about how to make it better for everyone. But let's just take a moment to appreciate mothers, our own and everyone else's. So if you're a mother, I hope you feel acknowledged today and every day. If you have a mother or had a mother, it's great to just appreciate them. If you'd like to know more about Brenda Earle Stokes, her website is brendaearle.com, BrendaEarle.com. You can learn more about her music there, watch some videos. And if you're looking for an instructor, sign up for some lessons. Brenda is clearly a fun person, but also a person of depth and conscience. So thank you, Brenda, for the music, for the humor, for the seriousness, and for this wonderful record, Motherhood. And if you enjoyed this episode of Paradigms, I hope you'll check out the Paradigms website, paradigms.life, where this episode and all the others going back to 2009 are archived. And at the bottom of that page, there's a link to my new audiobook, The Prophet by Khalil Gibran, narrated by Starhawk. I hope you'll check that out as well. So Mother's Day as a cry and a call for peace. I think of the mothers who are losing their children to violence in war right now. Think of all the mothers who have lost children to violence. Can't we stop this? Isn't it time for humanity to outgrow the ignorance and fear that lead to all this violence and the greed? I think it's time. I hope it's time. Anyway, I hope everyone has had a great day celebrating their mother or celebrating being a mother. And as we end the episode, we are going to listen to one more song from the album Motherhood, and it's called Happy Mother's Day by Brenda Earle Stokes. And let's let the word for the week be mother. Let's notice mothers, mother people, mother animals. Honor them. Without mothers, none of us would be here. And so many mothers are calling for peace. Let's honor that call. All right, Baruch signing off for this episode of Paradigms. We'll be back next time with more inspiring people. Until then, we honor the mothers and be well.
Here's to the mothers far and wide who cast their own needs to the side. To the mothers that say that everything's fine while they balance on the edge of a tightrope line. Here's to the mothers everywhere who often feel like no one cares. Here's to the mothers that try their best to keep all the feathers in their nest. To the mothers of sons and the mothers of daughters who manage to keep their heads above water. As a fellow mom, I'm here to say Happy Mother's Day. For those who revel in this role, raising up children in body and soul, the struggle is real and it takes its toll. Braving on, seeking and finding your way. Happy Mother's Day. Here's to the mothers that feel the pain and the ones who are drowning in their shame. To the mothers who struggle with too much doubt and the ones just trying to figure it out. You're not alone, I'm here to say Happy Mother's Day. For those who revel in this role, raising up children in body and soul, the struggle is real and it takes its toll. Braving on, seeking and finding your way. Happy Mother's Day. For those who revel in this role, raising up children in body and soul, the struggle is real and it takes its toll. Through the fear and the pain that will drive you insane, though the decks are stacked against us, we charge on our way. Happy Mother's Day. Every day is Mother's Day. Every day is Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day.
You've been listening to Paradigms at paradigms.life.